There I am. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the operator training today. We'll just give folks a few minutes to get on, and then we'll get started with the Q&A. You can go ahead and start chatting in your questions, or if you'd like to raise your hand, here is how to raise your hand. And the chat function should be right next to the participants function if you would like to chat your question in, and we'll get to those in just a moment. I'm Hannah Hickam, the Executive Assistant for COGCC, and I'll be your host for today. I'll just give folks a few more minutes to get on. All right, it looks like there's plenty of participants on here and it's stopped climbing so far. So far, we don't have any questions in the chat, so let's just move straight forward on to the first person on our list. Up first is Form 27, Guidance Documents with Greg Duranlo. Greg, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and begin.
Thanks, Hannah. Good morning, everyone. Greg Duranlo, Environmental Manager here. I'm going to talk briefly today about the specifically the Form 27 guidance document that the environmental unit has published. And then I'm going to turn it over to John Axelson. He's going to kind of just walk through the other guidance documents that have been put up on the website. We've pushed quite a few documents out through the environmental group, and I want to just kind of call your attention to that. So John will take us through those. Before he does so, though, we've received quite a bit of feedback from folks with concerns about the Form 27 guidance document. And I just want to go through a couple of things and touch on a couple of those concerns. The first concern, I think, is primarily surrounding the volume of Form 27s for both operators and COGCC staff to deal with, and concerns that frankly COGCC won't be able to keep up. It is our goal to continue to timely process Form 27s, and the guidance document includes on page 2 a commitment to processing those forms, or a goal of processing those forms within 30 days. In reality, we're currently processing forms within 48 hours of receipt of an initial Form 27. And of course, that is always contingent on the information that's contained within that form. So if there is an incomplete form, or it contains incorrect or information related to a different site, obviously that form's not going to get processed as fast. It'll get returned to the operator and pushed to the bottom of the pile. We do recognize that the rules laid out and a requirement that does increase our workload. It increases the burden on operators to provide additional Form 27s, and it requires COGCC staff to process that increased number of Form 27s. That said, we have already started talking with operators who have large programs in place, for facility closure. And we expect to continue to work with operators who have those types of programs so that we make sure that we're communicating early about the workload, and there's sort of no surprises. We don't get hit with 300 Form 27s that we weren't expecting. And if we do, we know we've got some time to work through those. So advanced planning on the operator's part and communication with COGCC staff remains a very critical component to our ability to timely review and process Form 27s. Requests have been made of us to kind of go back to the way we used to do it, with multiple Form 27 or with multiple sites being closed under a single Form 27. And frankly, that didn't work in the past for COGCC, and it was deliberately removed from the rules. So the problem with that was, projects that were executed without sufficient COGCC oversight, ineffective facility closure tracking, residual contamination left in place during facility closure that led to orphaned remediation projects. So that method just simply, it was very efficient for operators, but it was completely ineffective from a regulatory perspective. So we are working with operators, and our guidance does say that if there are multiple facilities on a single location, that work can be combined into one Form 27, and we will continue to do that. But if there are multiple components and multiple sites involved in a single sort of operation, we will still want to see individual Form 27s for those remediation projects. In the long run, we expect that this program will decrease workload for COGCC, decrease workload for operators. We won't find residual contamination as a result of follow-up or subsequent development of property. We won't, it will reduce the number of complaints about work that's going on seemingly without COGCC oversight. And so, we expect that this will result in better environmental stewardship by the oil and gas industry. As far as an issue was raised with the off-location flow lines, and there are other requirements associated with Form 42s, and Form 44s, and those, there is a 30-day advance notice required for those, and so our expectation is that operators can submit the Form 27 at the same time that they submit the other required advance notice forms, and then they can be timely processed ahead of time. The Form 27 contains different information than the Form 44 or 42 will contain, and so it is important that we get that information documented on a remediation, site investigation and remediation work plan. So for the time being, we will continue to work with the guidance that we have published for Form 27s. And, we will certainly, review that workload, review how it's working over time. And if we have to make tweaks to it, we will. If you need to work a specific project with your regional environmental protection specialist, by all means, reach out, communicate with them about what you have going on and upcoming, and we'll continue to work with operators to be as efficient as we can be with processing these forms. So with that, I will turn it over to John Axelson. I think he's just going to kind of walk through the list of other guidance documents that we have published. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Greg. Good morning, everybody. So Hannah has just pulled up the mission change guidance page from the website. And that's a list of all of the guidance documents that we've prepared so far. That includes permitting, OGLA, and the environmental unit. So one clarification, Greg mentioned Form 27 guidance document. So we don't have a standalone guidance document for the Form 27. So I don't want to get calls about where that guidance document exists. The Form 27 is the site investigation and remediation work plan. The environmental impact prevention rules, the 900 series, uses the Form 27 for many of our different rules to submit work plans and to document work done. So when you look at this table, you'll see many of the guidance documents that we've created list the Form 27 as the form to use. In most cases for the 900 series, you're going to use the 19 or the 27 or the 43. And in a very few number of cases, you'll use a sundry notice Form 4. So yeah, I just wanted to run through the documents that we've prepared so far, if you're not aware of them. We have Rule 615, and that's for the statewide groundwater baseline sampling and monitoring. And I should say the way we decided on which guidance documents to develop were really for rules that are brand new or rules that were significantly changed, where obviously we thought there were going to be a lot of questions. So we started, Rule 615 is an important one. It affects most operators. The next one is Rule 905G, which covers drill cuttings. We also provided a couple of appendixes with that. Appendix A is the land application plan checklist. Appendix B is a nice reference table that gives you all of the management methods depending on the type of drill cuttings you've generated. So if they were generated with oil-based muds, there's going to be certain management options. If they were generated with water-based bentonitic fluids, there's going to be other management options. And I do want to mention there that we did have a policy on drill cuttings. And so this rule completely replaces the policy. The policy is no longer in effect. We did keep the land application plan checklist. If operators are going to try to do a land application for water-based bentonitic drilling fluids. And so, management of drill cuttings has changed. So if you're not up to speed on that, please refer to the guidance. Next one, Rule 912B1. It was our spill and release reporting. A lot of updates to that rule. Rule 915E2, soil sampling and analysis. Rule 911A4 is facility closure. And I think that's what has led to a lot of the questions about how can COGCC develop better efficiencies to reduce labor both on operators' parts and COGCC staff. So we're working on that. With that guidance, we also developed some closure checklists for some specific facilities as examples. So such as tank battery closure or flow line closure. And those are examples. We wanted to try to give you a form that potentially field technicians could use out in the field when they're doing the closure operations to document things like field screening and soil observations. The rule doesn't say you have to use that document. We just tried to provide it as something, as a basis that you could use. You can develop your own. You might prefer to have separate standalone field logs for field screening and soil conditions and things like that. So Rule 913B5 has been published. That's for remediation standards. And that was a completely new rule that was really for to cover remediation projects and disturbance minimization, also safeguarding open excavations. And that is, an important rule that we're going to be really checking on in the field to make sure that people are complying with that. So if you haven't read that and your responsibilities involve remediation, please take a close look at that. And then the last one I think we released was Rule 909J, which is the pit produced water quality analysis. So that's what's posted on the website so far. And we've got many more to come. And I'll just give you a quick rundown. We expect all of these to be on the bestsellers list, so you can look forward to them. The next one we're almost done with is Rule 915A, which is soil concentrations, determination of pathway to groundwater. The next one's going to be Rule 905A3, E&P waste management plans specifically for reuse and recycling. Next will be Rule 913, site investigation, remediation, and closure. We're going to do a follow-up to Rule 911A on facility closure specifically for pits. And to include it in the original one, it was a little bit too much because there can be quite a bit that goes into a site characterization for pit closure, and quite a big difference between lined pits and unlined pits. Next up, we'll try to cover Rule 905 for water sharing agreements, Rule 907 for centralized E&P waste management facilities. And then as a follow-up for Rule 615, we're going to update our model sampling and analysis plan. And I think most of you that deal with that that rule are familiar with the current model sampling and analysis plan, which is on the website under help. And what that really is, it is a model. So there's no rule that says an operator has to develop their own, but that is really the premise behind it. That, you know, we give an outline of what contaminants of concern should be sampled for based on the rule, you know, how to do it, chain of custody protocol. And operators should take that and use it to develop their own specific plan for their own, you know, sites and facilities. So the same thing for Rule 909J, which is the produced water sampling requirement. We're going to develop a model SAP specific to that rule also. And last, Rule 903D covers estimated annual pit emissions. So we have some time to work on that one, but we'll try to develop a calculator or a model to estimate those annual emissions. And I think in the rulemaking, it was also said that we would perform a pit emission study. And not sure which group at COGCC will do that. So those are some of the documents you can look forward to. I did want to touch on what Greg was saying about the number of forms coming in. So in January, we received 154 new site investigation and remediation work plans. So those are initial Form 27s. 19 of those were submitted prior to the 15th. 135 were submitted on the 15th or after. And 90% of those were in the east half of the state. And we knew that was coming. So we really tried to work with operators. You know, we prioritized that work. We did not want to stop field activity. We had certain operators that sent us priority lists. And as Greg mentioned, I think we were able to turn most of those within 48 hours. So we're hoping we're almost 4 weeks, or we are 4 weeks into the new rules. So planning your work forward, you know, hopefully you can give us a little bit more time and kind of this crush of the day that the rules went new or became active. We hope will kind of smooth out. And in the meantime, I want to assure you all, we're going to try to work with you. We don't want to stop work in the field. So just communicate with me and the environmental protection specialists that cover the specific area where work's going on, and we'll do our best to help out. So I think that wraps up my part, and we can open it up to any questions.
Great, thank you, John. Thank you, Greg. We'll give them a moment for questions. I'm going to go ahead and get Jane's presentation queued up while we're waiting on questions.
Yeah, and just for the record, thanks, John. I did chat in there that I imprecisely referenced the Form 27 guidance when really that was the Rule 911A facility closure guidance document. And so the question regarding pit emissions, yes, there will. There will be a work group on pit emissions, and certainly the Commission tasked us with numerous work groups and things like that. And our first priority is really making sure that we're getting our implementation wheels and under us and legs under us. So I think once we start humming along with that, then we can really start looking to form those work groups and get them developed.
I can answer this question. What about the approval for other forms? Some of them have taken nearly a year to approve. Yes, historically and currently and for this foreseeable future, the volume of all kinds of forms that are filed with this agency exceed our ability to get them all approved at any point in time. There's always a backlog. There always will be a backlog. If you need a particular form approved, please just reach out to the appropriate staff and have a discussion about that form.
Thank you, Jane. So it looks like the questions have come to it's a lot slower. So we'll go ahead and move on, but of course we'll answer questions at the end as well. Next up is Jane Stanzik with the hearing application and e-forms coordination. And Jane, you can go ahead and take it away.
Yep. Thanks, Hannah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jane Stanzik, the permitting manager. I'm going to run through a quick presentation that we actually had way back in November, which seems like a year or two or a decade or two ago. So I'm just going to run through it. I've added some points that I hope will be helpful. And this is in response to questions I've received from operators, both from attorneys and regulatory staff. So the focus of these slides is the coordination that the oil and gas development plan permitting process requires for operators. Next slide, Hannah. Thank you. So these 9 steps were in the November presentation, and I've added some sub-steps which are all about coordination. So next slide, please, Hannah. So this step is what I call the operator's preliminary drafting. So this is work that you folks will do as you prepare an application for an oil and gas development plan. So I've added roles that I've assumed are valid. So number 1 is your attorney or attorneys are drafting the OGDP hearing application, and that might include requesting a drilling and spacing unit. So they're doing this outside the hearings e-filing system. They're just building the application. At the same time, I'm assuming regulatory staff is creating in eForms, in draft status, one or more Form 2As, a Form 2B, and a Form 2C. So this is all in preparation for hitting submit to file an OGDP application. Next slide, please, Hannah. So those of you that build forms in eForms, you know that as soon as you create a form in draft, it has an eForm document number. And you need to send that to your attorney. The attorneys in their hearing application, they need to have the eForm document number for any Form 2As, the Form 2B, and the Form 2C. They are going to put that in the text of their application. So I've got the Form 2B listed in here. Clearly, until that form is released, you won't have that number, and that's fine. Your attorney can say that you're utilizing the interim Form 2B and it's attached to the Form 2C. You know, attorneys are good at writing all kinds of words, and they can put a little sentence in their hearing application. So regulatory guys, be sure and contact your attorney after you've built these forms in draft in eForms and give them the document numbers. And I would hope that the attorneys and the regulatory staff would confirm the name that you're going to use for this oil and gas development plan. Even now with drilling and spacing unit applications, sometimes the hearing application drawn up by the attorney calls the well one thing, and when we go and look at the well or wells, they have a different name. So it's really helpful if you guys are consistent, so everyone knows what's going on. So let me back up just a little. The oil and gas development plan permitting process clearly has two parallel parts. There's the hearing application, and there are the forms. So the attorneys file the hearing application in the hearings e-filing system, and regulatory staff files the forms in the eForm system. And just as I'm pointing out in this presentation, the coordination that's required of the operators to get everything into those parallel systems accurately, we too will be coordinating between the hearings group and the technical staff group to get these things through simultaneously in parallel structures, systems. Next slide, please, Ms. Hannah. So the attorneys, they get the eForm document numbers that they need from the regulatory staff. They type them into all their words, and they file the hearing application in the hearings e-filing system for the oil and gas development plan and any spacing. Next slide, Hannah. So now there's work for us to do. The hearing staff looks at the OGDP hearing application, and they, check to see if it's complete. And if it isn't, if they've got a problem, of course, they'll contact the applicant, who's the attorney. If it is complete, in the hearing e-filing system, they will move it along in the process, and which means that the e-filing system assigns a docket number to that application. And the e-filing system sends an automatic email to the applicant, the attorney, with the docket number. And at that time too, all the application materials are now public through the e-filing system. Next slide, Hannah. So here's another coordination step. So the attorney gets that automatic email with the docket number. They need to get that to the regulatory staff because the regulatory staff needs it. Next slide, please, Hannah. So the regulatory staff gets from the attorney the docket number for the OGDP hearing application, and they enter it in the applicable forms, the 2As, 2B, 2C, because that docket number is required to submit those forms, and then they submit the forms. Next slide, please, Hannah. So now it's back to us. So OGLA staff is going to look at the 2As and the 2B. They're in upload. They have a completeness review. When they pass completeness, of course, eForms will send an automatic email to the applicant, in this case, the regulatory staff, to say that they're complete. The OGLA staff reviews the Form 2C. That's actually approved upon the completeness determination. eForms will assign an OGDP ID number so that we can track them in our database. And once again, eForms will send an automatic email to the applicant for the approval of the Form 2C. And in this case, the applicant is regulatory staff at the operator. Next slide, Hannah. So the hearing application is already public. It's been there since the docket number was assigned. Upon completeness determination, the forms will now be out on the website, publicly available for public comment, just like it's always been for the Form 2A. Next slide, please, Hannah. So talking about the parallel processes on our side, engineering, OGLA, and permitting staff will be doing a technical review of the hearing application. Permitting staff's been doing this for quite a while, and now these other technical groups are going to be doing reviews of the hearing applications. And the e-filing system will send automatic emails to notify the applicant if there are concerns. And in this case, the applicant's the attorney, and then the attorney responds as necessary. And at the same time, the OGLA staff is doing a technical review of the Form 2A and 2B, and they're interacting with the operator's regulatory staff. So again, we've got parallel processes going to review all the materials for an oil and gas development plan application. Next slide, please, Hannah. And of course, our hearing staff, they take care of all the, petitions, protests, pre-hearing conferences, anything that's part of the hearing process. And certainly that includes interaction with the operator's attorneys. Next slide, please, Hannah. Then these are just the steps of going at the end of our review processes. And it's where the director issues a recommendation to the commission to either approve or deny the OGDP application, and then it goes through the final commission approval process. So that's just a reminder. We'll get this posted with the mission change guidance documents. I hope some attorneys are listening. I'm sure there's lots and lots of the 190 people, a lot of regulatory staff. But this is just to point out the importance of your coordination as these parallel processes move along. So looks like there's questions. Hannah, are you going to read them for me?
Yeah, I'll read them for you. Thank you, Jane. Great job. Let's see. Did we do the what about the approval of other forms question? I feel like you. No. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And then please clarify that this prep is for an OGDP hearing application, not the OGDP application.
The OGDP application is the hearing application, and it is all the forms. It's everything. So I think what I was talking about is coordination of all the different pieces.
Okay, if that person has additional clarifying, you can just type that in. The next question is 505 testimonies are due at the same time as OGDP hearing application is submitted, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And that's critical. The engineering review of an OGDP hearing application cannot happen without the testimony that supports it.
All right, thank you, Jane. The next question is, for a variance request, is this going to be a formal hearing or is this more of a paperwork approval, trying to determine if an attorney would be required?
A variance request, now Rule 502 require, it always is a hearing application. So I believe that the 500 series requires an attorney to file a hearing application. I'd have to go back and look at that, but you can look at it as well. Is that it?
Thank you, Jane. That looks like it's it for now. Folks, you can still type in your questions and we'll get them at the end with the Q&A. Moving on, let's see, who do we have up next? I believe Dave Andrews with the cement bond log tool specifications. Give me just a moment to make that transition. There we go. Dave, you may take it away.
Thank you, Hannah, and good morning, everyone. I'm COGCC's engineering manager, Dave Andrews. I had a quick topic today, and this came up as a result of one of our engineers reviewing a cement bond log. He noticed that the line speed on the bond log exceeded the manufacturer recommended specifications. And I just wanted to point out that we have several rules, particularly after the last rulemaking, that cite operators' compliance with manufacturer recommended specs. We don't have a particular rule on logging, but this mechanical conditions rule 608E is somewhat of a catch-all for many different things in the operator's equipment and operations. Hannah, next slide, please. So here's a specific example of a cement bond log. This was the manufacturer specs that our engineer pulled up based on the tool that was used on a particular log. So you'll see on this one, the manufacturer recommended a line speed for the log of between 30 and 60 feet per second. The issue that we've encountered is recently, it looks like some operators have been running CBLs at higher line speeds. So looking ahead with pressure management plans and other things that engineers are reviewing, if based on the CBL results, we have concerns with what we're seeing as part of our review of a pressure management plan or wellbore isolation, operators may expect a call from your engineer to discuss that. And Hannah, that wraps up my brief topic.
Great, thank you, Dave. It doesn't look like we have any questions right this second, but we'll just catch those at the end so that we can keep pressing on. Next up is Jane with the transfer operatorship form 9. Just give me a moment to get that queued up. Okay. All right, Jane, take it away.
Thank you, Hannah. I am going to talk briefly about the Form 9s, which is the transfer of operatorship form. I'm also going to take this opportunity to give you a couple of updates on some other things. Next slide, please, Hannah. So we've received many, many, many questions about the Form 9. Rule 218 is a new rule. It requires a Form 9 transfer of operatorship. This rule and this new form replace the old rules that referred to the Form 10 for change of operator. That's all gone away. We have a whole new way of changing operatorship. So Rule 218B, little b, requires a Form 9 transfer of operatorship intent to be filed by the seller 30 days or as soon as possible before the anticipated transfer date. 218D requires a Form 9 subsequent to be filed by the buying operator within 7 days after the transfer is closed. The Form 9 is still in testing, and I hope it will be released by the end of this month. Until then, there is no workaround. You folks will unfortunately just have to wait and file your Form 9s as soon as possible after the form is available in eForms. Next slide, please, Hannah. So this is just a quick update about your old Form 2s and 2As that were pending in the system on January 14th of 2021. So they will not be reviewed. If an operator still wants a particular location or well approved, that was the reason for those applications, you'll have to create and submit a replacement 2A and Form 2. The Commission has instructed operators to notify the COGCC which of these old pending 2As and 2s they intend to replace. And that notification is required by March 1st. To help you with this, our IT staff created an operator report tool, and it is located on the pending permits page of the website. That little picture on the left there shows you what it looks like. You put in your operator number, you click go, and you get an export Excel spreadsheet that has 2 tabs on it, one for your 2s, one for your 2As. It lists all of them, and it even has a column right there, column A, where you can indicate whether or not you intend to replace that and that particular application. And then you can email this list, this as an attachment to Penny Garrison, the permitting supervisor, and John Noto, the oil and gas location assessment supervisor. So in doing that, you're fulfilling the requirement from the Commission that you notify us which applications you intend to replace. So again, that notice is required by March 1st. So you got like, I don't know, 2.5 weeks to make that happen. The last time I checked, we'd only received lists from about 12 operators. And there are many more operators with pending applications. So then beginning on March 2nd, staff will start withdrawing any, well, all the old pending 2As and 2s that you have not indicated that you intend to replace. So this is just a reminder, that we've provided a tool to help you comply with the direction from the Commission, and a reminder of what we're going to start doing on March 2nd. Next slide, Hannah. So when we started publishing all this new mission change guidance, we built a whole new page on the website, and you saw it earlier. John or Hannah drove to it while John Axelson was talking about all the guidance his group has put out there. Some of those guidance documents are form instructions. Some of them are just kind of explanations of how the new rules work. And right now we have over 50 documents there, which is a lot, and we're going to have a lot more. John listed, I don't know, at least 10 more that his group alone is preparing to be posted there. So to me, that's getting a little bit clunky to have that many documents there. And what we've done is what we haven't done is update the individual instruction pages for each of our forms. And so we're going to start doing that. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave all the documents on that one mission change guidance page. We're going to keep adding to it as we prepare and release new documents. But we're also going to start putting, and it's going to take us a while, but we're going to start putting the form instruction documents on their respective form instruction pages. But you know, those pages are already full of all the old stuff. And the old stuff still in some cases applies. If the permitting or engineering staff is reviewing a Form 5 that was submitted last August, it has to comply with the old instructions, not the new instructions. So what we're going to do is archive all the old instructions. So they will still be there. We're going to put the new instructions on the page, but there will be an archive section at the bottom of every form instructions page. And you know, there's lots and lots of these. It's going to take us a while to do it, but I just wanted to give you the heads up that we're going to start updating those pages, but that we're going to retain the old instructions in an archive section for some period of time, you know, maybe a year. So that's it. Just some updates for everybody. Keep us all moving. Any questions? Hannah, can you drive there?
Yeah, I was gonna just ask you if you wanted me to drive.
Thank you.
Sure thing. So anytime you're on our website, you can click the logo and go back to the main page. And then can you tell me how to get to the forms one?
Yes, please go to regulation.
Okay.
And then hit forms. And here's our form instructions page. And just click on the blue words permit to drill there for the Form 2, Hannah. Okay, so here's all the old stuff because we haven't done this yet. We haven't migrated it yet. So if you could scroll all the way down, Hannah. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So see where it says archive documents? Eventually, we're going to have things there. You can see right now, it just says this form does not have any archive documents. But when we get to this page, it's going to have a lot of archive documents and it's going to have new documents up at the top. So that's how it's going to work. Like I said, I mean, just looking at this page, there's a lot of things to, you know, we're updating them. Some of them are going away. But they're all going to be archived at the bottom. So that's it. Thank you, Hannah, for driving.
Yeah, thank you, Jane. And it looks like we don't have any questions yet, but while maybe some folks are still typing, here's how to get to where it is right now. There's our homepage, and then SB 19-181, and then mission change guidance. And then here are the 50 or so forms here, not forms, but guidance stuff.
Right. And like I said, we're not removing anything from here. So it just means that the form instructions are going to be in two places. just to be more accessible, and we will just keep adding and adding and adding. So.
Great. It looks like we've got some questions that came in, so I'll go ahead and read those for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you intend to replace the Form 2A and Form 2, you must still submit the new OGDP applications that correspond with the replaced Form 2A and Form 2s by July 15th of 2021. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, that is correct. And can you submit a Form 2 replacement prior to approval of the Form 2A and OGDP application?
No.
All right, thank you. And the next question is, if an operator has already sold assets to a new operator, is a prelim Form 9 required or just the subsequent 9?
We're going to need both when the Form 9 is available.
Okay, great. Well, looks like all the questions right now. We'll give folks a few more minutes to do the typing in. While we're doing that, I'll just navigate you guys to where we keep all of the operator meeting notes and such. So you go back to our web page, our main page, and then regulation, and then operator guidance, and then down here on the right at the bottom, past meeting agendas, recordings, etc. And then you'll find the most recent going down to the least recent. And you can see here, there's the agenda, here's the video recording, the presentations, and any other documents. We did put up I think all of the question documents from the last 4 or 5 sometime last week. So you can go see those questions and answers there if you'd like. And then we'll post today's items as soon as we can get to them sometime.
And just one comment, from going forward, we will only have these trainings once a week on Tuesdays. We're no longer going to have twice a week on Thursdays.
Thank you, Jane. The next question that's come up is there a planned guidance document for the attestation attachment? Attestation.
I think the answer is no. That rule is pretty clear as to what has to be attested to. So at this time, I wasn't going to. I wouldn't know what to say except just to restate the rule. And that, attestation is a legal thing. So I think operators might want to check with their counsel as to what needs to be in that document.
All right, great.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it so far. I want to give people a little bit longer since we're so ahead of time. Oh, good, there's one. If you do not want to replace pending Form 2A or Form 2s, do you need to email confirmation that you do not intend to file any replacements?
No, if we don't hear from you by March 1st, all those documents will just be withdrawn.
All right, thank you. And I'm just going to put up my other slide for when the next meeting is so that folks can see that. Only Tuesdays from here on out, like Jane said. We don't have the agenda quite yet, but we'll get it out to Thursday or Friday. Let's see if any other questions come in. I kind of want to put the Jeopardy music on right now. All right, well, I don't think there's any more questions coming in. I guess if you're mid-typing, will you just type something real quick so that we know to hang on? But otherwise, thank you all for coming to this training. We'll have another one next Tuesday at 9, the agenda to be announced and sent out sometime on Thursday or Friday. With that, I hope everybody has a great day and take care.
Thanks,
Hannah.
Thanks.
Thank you.